Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for attending Riparia's first public event, Speaking Up for Water Protectors, Storytelling, and Science. My name is Justina Mandalia, and my pronouns are she and her, and I will be one of two facilitators this evening alongside Riparia's co-founder, Dr. Andrea Reid. Over the next hour, we'll be celebrating three incredible women who are out there doing advocacy on behalf of land and water, and also advocating about the important role of women that they play in these spaces. We'll be listening to each of them tell their inspiring stories and their messages that will help better guide the next generation of land and water protectors. Following their presentations, we will have a collective conversation with the speakers in the form of a panel. And we invite you, the audience members, to drop your questions in the comment boxes of the Facebook or YouTube platforms on which you're watching the stream. This event is part of a much broader celebration of learning called Science Odyssey, which is happening virtually all this week. And this event was made possible by funding from the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada and their Promo Science program. We would like to thank the organization that we partnered with called Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, who helped us immensely with the logistics. And we would like you to stay tuned for the end of the program because we'll be awarding 10 different names door prizes, so stick around. Now I'll pass on the mic to Andrea to provide a welcome and share more information about our organization, Riparia.
Neat. I'm Willa. Hello, how are you? Thank you, Justine, for getting us started, and thank you everyone for taking the time out of your afternoons or evenings, depending on where you're joining from, to be with us here today. As Justine introduced, my name is Andrea Reid. I'm a citizen and member of the Nisga'a Nation on BC's North Coast. Yet I grew up on the east coast of Canada in Mi'kma'ki on Epicwit, or what is also known as Prince Edward Island. I'm an Indigenous fisheries scientist and a new assistant professor with the Institute for the Oceans and Fisheries at the University of British Columbia, where I'm the principal investigator for our new Center for Indigenous Fisheries. I'm joining you now from the territories of the Humusqueam, the Skohomish, and the Tsleil-Waututh in what is now known as Vancouver. And I encourage you all to think about whose lands and waters are beneath your feet. You can even share these reflections in the chat if you'd like. In this country now known as Canada, we are indeed on Indigenous lands coast to coast to coast. And the conscientious practice of acknowledging territory, place, and our relationship to it is one way that we can work towards improving these relationships, both between people and place, as well as between peoples. As Justine noted, I'm one of three co-founders of Riparia, an organization with a stated purpose of connecting youth and science on the water. Along with Dr. Dalal Hanna and Mikayla Wujec, we've created this registered Canadian charity to motivate young women, inclusive of all identities, to enjoy and protect fresh waters and the outdoors. We offer free science-based outdoor expeditions as well as day camps on the water that specifically support Indigenous and non-Indigenous youth with limited access to outdoor opportunities. The name Riparia in Latin means of the riverbank, where land and water meet. And we love this name because our programs are all about worlds colliding, of bringing together Western science tools alongside approaches and insights from Indigenous knowledge systems. We're bringing together Indigenous and non-Indigenous youth to share experiences and to learn from one another. And we're also creating space for young learners to build relationships with and directly from bona fide experts, which include our team of scientists and storytellers, as well as the Indigenous knowledge keepers and elders that we partner with. All that we do is centered on better understanding what makes fresh waters healthy and what role we can all play to keep them that way, recognizing the very special role of women as water keepers, water walkers, water protectors. Today marks our official launch as an organization, and we are honored to be marking the occasion in the presence of three remarkable guests who are all pushing boundaries and breaking down barriers in their own right, challenging who can be involved in sports and outdoor recreation and exploration and how, standing up for Indigenous rights and upholding their responsibilities to their communities, and actively defending land and water through their work and lived experiences. I'm deeply excited to hear what they have to share with us today. Today also marks the official launch of Riparia's first fundraising campaign in support of our summer programs. And I'm pleased to share that we're already at just over a quarter of our way to our $10,000 goal, thanks to early contributions from family, friends, colleagues, and anonymous donors. You can also contribute to our 2021 fundraising campaign by visiting riparia.ca/donate that you can see on the screen, and by sharing this link with others who also see value in our mission and programs. And I'll now pass the mic back to Justine to introduce and host our speakers in turn. But I want to first just remind the audience that after these 3 short talks, we're going to have a panel discussion at the end of today's session where we will welcome and field questions from the chat. But before you post a question or comment, we ask that everyone first reflect on whether what they're asking of today's speakers, if that involves emotional labor on their part. We ask that you use inclusive language that embodies respect and that you consider how to frame sensitive topics without causing harm. So with that, I'd say thanks and pass it back to Justine.
I'm very honored to announce our first speaker, which is Waneek Horn-Miller, who is a member of the Bear Clan Mohawk, and she's a mother of 3 from the communities of Kanawake and Ohsweken. Waneek has worked extensively in sports broadcasting with CBC and APTN. She's a motivational speaker, and she shares stories about her journey from the front lines of the Oka crises to her vast experience in the Olympics. As one of Canada's fewer Aboriginal Olympians, Waneek uses her experience in sports to influence leadership towards making sport and wellness a community-building priority. Waneek has been a brand ambassador for Manitoba Mucklucks for about 8 years, and she's currently the Vice President of Innovation and Client Relations for Indigenous Financial Solutions. So we're pleased to welcome Waneek.
Sego. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Justine. Thank you so much, Dr. Andrea Reid, for having me here. We're living in crazy times, and I just wish that I could actually physically share space with all of you. Hopefully, sometime soon that we can do that. But this is the next best thing. I'm very honored to be here. I am from the Mohawk Nation. I am a Bear Clan woman, and I am currently residing on unceded Algonquin territory, now known as Ottawa. And this is a wonderful opportunity to get a chance to speak about something I'm very passionate about, and with incredible women who are doing phenomenal things. So I just think that, Riparia and what you are offering and what you're trying to do as a organization to help build up knowledge and to help expose young Indigenous and non-Indigenous people to understand water and to understand it in a way that Indigenous people have for a long time, the understanding that we must protect it. And when I was young, I was raised, and I don't represent anybody but myself. I always say that at the beginning of each speech. I represent my own experiences, and I was raised in a traditional way amongst my people, and we were raised with this understanding from my mother. It's not about a concept of a creator, but of creation. And she would often say to us, you are part of this creation. You are part of this great energy. And that creation, if you ever hear us speak of the Ahonda Dekwa before every recognition of that interconnectivity of the birds and the water and the animals and the sky and the land, and it's this interconnectivity, and that it's a relationship of coexistence that is really, really important to our survival. And it makes me think about what my relationship has been, with water. My life has always been tied to water since the first time I dipped my foot in a pool when I was a little kid. I was raised by a single mom. My father, who went to residential school, unfortunately wasn't in our lives. My mom is this very strong woman who scrimped and saved, and was able to put her daughters in sports. And she actually chose swimming because it wasn't a sport that was involved judging. It didn't involve a judge or and so she was worried that our indigenousness, our nativeness would affect a judge. And so she wanted us to race against the clock. And it was interesting because that water, I remember it's, as long as I can't remember not being able to swim, that, it's been a place of strength for me. It's been a place of cleansing for me. It's been an empowerment and achievement. And it's also, a place where I learned to connect with my body, my mind, and my spirit, and create this space of my own ceremony of how I remain centered and well. Water was hugely important factor in that. And it also was a place where I could defy stereotypes. I learned at a very young age that it was a place where, I was growing up in a time where there was and still is a lot of preconceived ideas about who we are, what we're capable of, especially Indigenous women. And I remember it was a place where I could, my mom, I'd often say to her, even officials at swim meets would say stuff about my name, being named Waneek and being kind of on the front end of how a lot of the parents were reclaiming Indigenous names. But it was also weird when everybody else was a Tom and a Sarah and an Ann. I was a Waneek, and so they'd always ask me, where are you from and what are you? And then all come these stereotypes about who we were. And all my mom would say to me, she's like, you get in the pool and you show them who you are. You show them what we're capable of. You show them. And so this became a place where I could defy those stereotypes and also set records and change minds, open minds. And it was a place of transformation and growth, not only of myself, of those in which I competed with and against. It was also a place I found refuge after the Oka crisis when I was 14, where I learned about being a land defender. And I learned about what that land and what our people had to go through to defend it. And I was only 14 years old, so I can't tell you I was a leader. I was like any spokesperson. I was an observer. I was learning. I was really learning about, racism. I was learning and it would transform my understanding about this world. I kind of came from this kind of rose-colored glasses. I experienced racism as a child, but it was this type of racism, that extreme racism that I experienced, through the race riots and the stoning of our elders' cars. I realized that, there was a large segment of society that was angry and fearful and rageful at who we were and what we were doing, trying to defend our land and the expansion of a golf course, expansion over our traditional burial grounds. But I also, I learned what it meant to be a warrior. And I saw a lot of powerful women, women who stood up, women who were leaders of that movement, spokespeople. And I saw this, this power and how sometimes to make change, you have to go against the flow. There used to be this saying, well, that's just the way it is. And at that time during the Oka crisis, there were many, many thousands of our people, not just at Oka, but across the country, that decided to go against that flow and make change. And I learned that you have to sometimes go against that flow to make change. And I really, I understood that time. It was prior to, I always say this, prior to the Google era and anti-Google, where you could access to anything. There was a deliberate hiding of the true history of Canada and what it means about treaties. What are treaties? What are lands rights? What are Section 35 of the Constitution? And who are these Native people? And what right do they have to, ask for these rights? And what are they doing? But really, if you really understand what we are fighting for, is not only our own sovereignty, but the earth and our understanding of our role in creation and protecting that land, protecting it not only for us, but for all the generations to come. And that's how I was raised, is that this is not just for us. This is to know that this land will be here, will look the same. This water will be here. We will be able to drink it for time immemorial. And so I've always understood, that a lot of the awakening that happened during the Oka crisis, it was a shock. It was like a jerking awake. but it was also an uncovering that could never be covered up. And the last 31 years, there was no going back into the dark of ignorance. You can't say, no Canadian could say they didn't know what a treaty right was. They didn't know what that meant. It had been on the front page of every newspaper and headlined every newscast for 78 days. And I became kind of a symbol of that at 14, when at the very end, I was stabbed in the chest while holding my little sister by a Canadian soldier. And it was after that and dealing with a lot of trauma and what I now know is post-traumatic stress disorder, that I went back to the place that I always found healing, and that was the water. I went back to what I knew would help me. And it was that relationship with water and relationship with sports in the water, and how it made me feel, that helped me heal, but also gave me a purpose. Gave me a purpose and an understanding that not only did I have to continue to defy people's understanding of what Indigenous people were capable of, but I had to go on and prove to the world what we're capable of. And that when I became an Olympian, that would be a role and a capacity in which I could also raise awareness about a lot of other Indigenous issues, because it would open doors to places that not necessarily other Indigenous people would get to, that it would give me a chance to expose and open minds. And that's what I love about Riparia. It's about opening minds and exposing and bringing us together in a flow in the same direction. I know what it is to be on the front lines of these issues, and this is not something that I want to repeat or have my children repeat. And so I promised my kids when they were born that I would do everything I could to try and ensure that that wouldn't happen, and that includes sharing my story. I think about what we are trying to do with our children, and I love my kids, but I love all children. And we have an understanding in our culture that everybody is born a warrior. Whether, you're a male or a female, that you're born that way. And when need calls, you have to stand up and make a stand. I think we're living in a time now where it's really important that we start to understand we need to make a stand. I'm old enough to remember the introduction of bottled water into our society. I thought it was crazy, but it is now a commodity. We have over 100 communities that don't have clean drinking water. My community drinking water was, up until a few years ago, was under levels of what it should be. And so it's something that, we have to instill in our young people, that this isn't about an us or them fight anymore. It's about our fight to preserve the land and preserve the water, to ensure, and we have to cultivate in them this understanding that there isn't one way to be a warrior. There is not just one. It's about being a warrior is bringing forth those special skills, those special gifts that you're born into this world, that creation sends you into the world with, and we as parents and Riparia and other organizations have to help cultivate that and bring it forward. I chose to express my warriorness by being an Olympic athlete and utilizing that role to educate and open people's minds. You can be a water protector like Doreen, or a scientist like Jill, all these ways in which our young people can be warriors. But the only thing that we don't have an option to do is nothing. We have to teach not only our children, but ourselves and our friends and our families that we all need to do something. We need to just start to stand together. We need to start flowing and bringing our flows together to ensure that we do have that a Canadian value, not just for some people, is clean drinking water. And this is what I often say to when I speak, is I'm trying to change how you see what it means to be Canadian. And I believe that for Canadians, clean drinking water for all is a fundamental human right. And this is something that we all have to fight for. And we do need to bring our minds and our spirits together. And this is why I'm so passionate about how Riparia is going and 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 bringing together kids to feed that, those special gifts and help build their warriorness so that we all can go towards that goal. So I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. And I know I probably went over 7 minutes, but I will zip it. It's very hard for a Mohawk to speak for 7 minutes. I just have to tell you that. So thank you so much.
Oh, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your talk, Waneek. And you were completely on time, so it's all good. So yeah, we'll run into our next speaker now. Jill Heinerth, I am so honored to present her. I saw her speak when I was in university myself, so she's been doing amazing work in the underwater world. Jill is an underwater explorer, writer, photographer, speaker, and filmmaker, and she's led expeditions into icebergs in Antarctica, volcanic lava tubes, and submerged caves literally all over the world. Jill was one of the first, or was the first explorer in residence of the Royal Canadian Geographic Society, and Jill's memoir, Into the Planet, has been applauded by numerous organizations like the Wall Street Journal, Oprah Magazine, and the New York Times. Jill also wrote a children's book called The Aquanaut, and that won a Blue Ribbon selection for Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. Jill is a fellow of many organizations like the International Scuba Diving Hall of Fame, the Underwater Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Women Divers Hall of Fame, as well as the Explorers Club, which recently awarded her the William Beebe Award for Ocean Exploration. So thank you, Jill, and we're looking forward to your talk.
Child, I wanted to be an astronaut. But as a young girl growing up in Canada, the opportunity didn't exist for me. So instead of floating in outer space, I chose to swim into the planet. I swim through the veins of Mother Earth, in the doorways of our world. I find peace, respite from the clanging, distracting earth above me. On land, I'm heavy, but here in my element, I can fly with the incredible lightness of being free. In this place, void of all light, there is revelation, each new tunnel offering access to something never seen, remote and forbidden, yet here I am fully engaged. Without challenge, without exploration, we are dead. And if we do not face the fear of the darkness, it will chase us into submission. I swim through this sanctuary, sometimes even through the graves of my friends, feeling only their joy in a life fully lived. I swim through the pulsing turquoise life of our planet, because the future is revealed here, beneath your feet, where all that we have wrought upon the land will be returned to us to drink. I swim through the womb of this planet to give birth to images and ideas, to share her wonders and her hardships. And whether you visit it or not, this sacred realm should be your sanctuary too. The flesh of this earth soaks up all that you give it. Springs will nourish your rivers or carry your pollution. This underworld sanctuary can offer a wellspring of life or create a harbor in decline. As society seeks answers on distant worlds, we must also journey within. The beating heart of the water planet is beckoning all of us. Look within her. Look within yourself. Find a world of great potential. Find a world worth nurturing. The foreboding doorways of underwater caves repel most people, but I am attracted to the constricted corridors, pressing my way through the blackness while relying on sophisticated technology for each sustaining breath. This is my workplace. Within the darkness of my office, survival depends on embracing both curiosity and fear. I work with biologists discovering new species, physicists tracking climate change, and hydrogeologists examining our finite freshwater reserves. Following the course of water wherever it guides me, my exploration has allowed me to witness new life forms inside Antarctic icebergs, skeletal remains of ancient civilizations, and geologic formations that tell the story of Earth's past. Underwater caves are museums of natural history that teach us about evolution and survival. They are portals to the mythic underworld of indigenous cultures and windows to the aquifer from which we all drink. As I swim through these caverns measureless to man, it is not my own survival that I dwell on. It is the survival of our water planet. Sometimes I fear that we will not rise to meet the challenges of our current global environmental and social crises. Then I meet a young person who's been moved by images to take action. There is plenty of water on our big blue planet, but we're running out of clean, fresh water that nourishes the natural world and fresh water that we can afford. We all need to know where our water comes from, how we pollute it, and how we can protect it for future generations. We have to protect it from corporate interests whose success relies on commodifying it and selling it to the highest bidder. Clean water is not just our greatest treasure, it is a basic human right. Helping young minds understand and embrace their water planet is key to our survival. Our photography and storytelling has the power to exact change. We can be the instruments of optimism that help move conservation and environmental stewardship forward. The COVID-19 crisis is rich in lessons, especially for us living in North America. One takeaway is that viruses do not carry passports. In fact, they don't observe national borders at all, or nationalist rhetoric. In our tightly integrated world, a contagious disease originating in one country can and will go global. Water is no different. It's a resource we all share and we must protect together. From estuaries to the world's great ocean currents, everything is connected. Everything that we do, everything that we consume, and everything that we discard matters. Water is the element that unites us all. And if one of us damages the oceans, the lungs of our planet, then we will all feel the effects. The earth is 70% water. My body is 70% water. We are all intertwined in this dance called life. The ocean starts in your home. The ocean flows through your body. The ocean starts beneath your feet.
That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for that, Jill. And we're on our last speaker now, and it's my complete honor to introduce Dorene Bernard, a traditional Mi'kmaq grandmother from Sebeganakity, Mi'kmaqi. She's a mother of 4 and grandmother of 9, and her family inspires her work to promote cultural teachings, Mi'kmaq history, treaty rights, and teachings of water. She holds multiple roles. She's a pipe carrier, a water walker, a water protector, and a volunteer grassroots grandmother, which all these roles play into her work for working towards social justice for women and the environment. And she draws her strength and courage from Indigenous women in her life. Survivors, elders, teachers, leaders, movers, shakers, they all inspire her to work for the good of all creation. Dorene's inability to create change in her 15-year career in child welfare basically had her leave and begin her own healing journey. She moved on to pursue work in community support work with residential school survivors and families with her MSW degree in the Aboriginal field of study in 2013. Dorene was the Coady Chair on Social Justice at the Coady International Institute in 2017 at St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia. It was here where she focused on multiple topics. She looked at Indigenous perspectives on the Indian residential school system, child welfare, Mi'kmaq treaty rights, environmental racism, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, climate justice, as well as the protection of water. It's my pleasure to introduce Dorene. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I would like to begin my talk to speak up for the water on first acknowledging the knowledge keepers, that the teachers that I've had to learn from over the years, their love and commitment to share their teachings, our culture, our medicines, language, and our connection to our lands and water, and our responsibility to honor and defend it. I share the teachings as part of my lifelong journey of healing and learning from lived experience, the ancestral memory of historic racism, historic trauma of colonization, experience of residential school, and the resilience of our continued resistance of environmental racism, oppression, and infringement on treaty rights and human rights that impact our families, our communities, our nations, which is a part of the legacy that I want to pass down to the next generation. As a youth, I looked up to the women that were activists and our own mothers and aunties and survivors themselves that that worked hard to revive our culture, our language, and develop programs of healing for our people. It still took a long time to trust and embrace the teachings and start to practice what I learned, but I've always been an advocate for Indigenous rights. On my healing journey through ceremonies, sweat lodge, Sundance, fasting, and connecting to women's teachings, healing ceremonies, understanding the sacredness of water, I became involved in the protection of the water in the water walks. This connection led me to witnessing the actions of other grandmothers who were standing up and educating about the sacredness of water in their actions to walk for the water in prayer, to educate the public about the pollution on Mother Earth and about the responsibility to protect the water. Grandmother Josephine Mandelman, Mother Earth's water walker, taught this through her example of humility and commitment and love and her teachings of the water. She initiated the Mother Earth water walks in 2003 and walked around the Great Lakes and across Turtle Island to raise awareness of the sacredness of water. She shared the teachings of the water and the women's teachings, our sacredness as life givers. We have been given a gift to be able to carry new life in the womb. Our first world is the water, surrounded by water, protected. We are able to breathe the water, drink the water. We are the water. When we come into this world, the water comes first. We come through the water to take our first breath of air. I learned my role as a woman water protector and embraced and shared responsibility to protect the water and all life that needs clean water to survive. With the gift of being able to bring children into the world, women have also been given the responsibility to protect the water for all life, teach about the sacredness of water to our children and respect for Mother Earth. And they will teach to our future generations. Men have a role as well to protect the women and children. Grandmother has inspired thousands of women and men to walk for the water in ceremony, and we will continue to her legacy to speak for the water, to walk for the water, and all life that it needs to survive. We sing for the water. We make offerings to feel the spirit, to feed the spirit of the water. And we will always teach others to do the same. We have a water walk in May every year. This year it may be, this year it may be in June because of the pandemic. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, sorry. The women have women are on the front lines of to protect the sacred. They have been across the world. Women stand up for water, for their lands and their water, for their families, for the survival of their people. Women are often on the front lines to protect the water against industrial pollution and the destruction of the lands. There's a direct correlation to industrial destruction of Mother Earth and the violence against women around the world, and the many missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and relatives. Many have been murdered and have gone missing while standing on the front lines in front of industry, the military, and the governments to defend the sacred. Many have died from violence and abuse from corporations that continue to destroy the lands and the water. Through media, we have witnessed these atrocities around the world caused by industry and governments that only see our Mother Earth and waters as commodities. The resource extraction and destruction of the lands and waters, and the people, the animals, and all life are their collateral damage and inconvenience, expendable to their quest for wealth and greed. Several of our Mi'kmaq women grandmothers are in the court system for trespass on our own lands while we are protecting the water from corporate pollution. Our people stand up for our Mi'kmaq treaty rights being violated. We are criminalized, and systemic racism is allowed by the government and police against us. Mi'kmaq people are put in danger and are fighting for the rights to fish in our own territory, in our own waters, asserting our treaty rights and title to our unceded Mi'kmaq. Recently, the UN NSERC has intervened on behalf of Mi'kmaq, asking Canada to respect treaty rights and protect the Mi'kmaq in asserting our rights. Next slide. We are at a crossroads where every human being is called to solidarity with peoples across Turtle Island, where water and lands are at risk to environmental racism, industrial contamination, fossil fuel energy infrastructure, climate change, and state laws and vigilante justice that put lives at risk. This has happened in the past. It's happening in the present, and it will continue to happen in the future if we do not all stand together to demand change. We call on everyone to stand up and take actions for what is right and just for the health of our environment and all life that depends on the land and water to survive. The climate crisis is not just an Indigenous issue. It is a human issue caused by human indifference of our interdependence for all living things to survive on Mother Earth. Our allies, fishers, landowners, environmental organizations, communities have joined together to take actions to protest what is happening and to stand up and protect the water. Next slide. Sorry about that. There's many things that you can do to become involved in the protection of the environment, to be that water warrior, water protector. Here in Mi'kma'ki and elsewhere where you live, you can raise awareness about the sacredness of water and environmental justice and clean water that is needed for all to live. You can participate where you are, either as a support or in education for the water walks, that when people pray for the water, walk for the water, honor the water where you live, celebrate and stand up to protect your own watershed and source of clean water. Get to know where your water comes from and deepen your relationship with water. Love the water, thank the water, and respect the water. Support Indigenous people in their lands, in their stand for protection of the water and the land, the resources for the future generations. Stand with Indigenous people in the assertion of their treaty rights to the lands and waters and resources to support their families and communities. Next slide. The water walks is a very important ceremony. We will continue the water walks to continue to pray for the water, to raise awareness about the sacredness of water and where your water comes from, how we are connected to the water all around us, the water that's above us, that comes down from the sky, the water that's below us that we can't see, the waters that are on the surface, as well as the water that's inside of you. We're taught that we can heal the water. You can heal the water with your prayer and intention. Dr. Masaru Emoto taught about that in his water crystal experiments. How water has spirit, it is alive. The life, culture, and strength of the Indigenous people cannot be separated from the sacredness of water. We embrace our connection to the lifeblood of Mother Earth and encourage all people to do the same. Water must be defended at all costs, because water is life. Next slide. These treaty fishers are out on the water to fish for their communities, for their families. They're being prevented from going out into the water safely, to assert their treaty rights. And in the near future, in the next few weeks, our Mi'kmaq people will be going out again, as we did last year, to establish a Mi'kmaq fishery that will sustain our people in our own lands, in our own waters. And we ask for the support of Canadians all over to stand up against the government and those that will try to stop our people from practicing our inherent treaty rights. Next slide. When we were walking in 2019, we walked 850 kilometers from Mi'kma'ki in Sibeganagadi to Nabizin in Penobscot Territory in Maine. And through their territory in New Brunswick, these children in a holistic school were following us and online, and they sent us a donation from their hot dog sales at the school where they did fundraising, and they sent us a basket of fruit and these beautiful artwork of encouragement and their view of what water is. Water is sacred. Water is life. It's just so beautiful at a time when we were really needing that encouragement, and it was very beautiful. And it's to me it was a highlight, one of the highlights of the walk during those 90 days was to hear from the children that they were embracing these teachings as we walked. And it's like walking our prayer, and they sent that message to us, and we need to do more. Yes. Next slide. This is the water ceremony I would like to share. It's a water ceremony that everybody can do. We just take a cup of water, put it beside you when you go to sleep at night. We can never take the water for granted, that it's always going to be there when needed. We need to develop our relationship with the water. So in the evening before you go to sleep, place your water beside you with your good intention for relationship with the water. The water is connected to the water that's inside of you. It knows you, it hears you, it sees you, it feels you, and knows your worries and your dreams. And when you wake up in the morning, you pick up your cup, your water, and you tell the water, I love you, I thank you, I respect you. Water is life. Ask the water to be your medicine. Go to your heart, mind, body, spirit, emotions, wherever it is needed for your good health, that help, happiness, understanding. Make a small offering of tobacco or cornmeal on the earth. Give thanks for the water. Drink that water, your first medicine of the day, to begin your day. I always end my prayer with all my relations, or Msit Nogama. Next slide. This song was written by Anishinaabe grandmother Doreen Day. It's a water song at the request of her grandson, and they used to sing this song when they drove him to school. One day he told them that they should write it down and gift it to the world, because everybody needs to know how to love the water and thank the water and respect the water. And I'd like to share this song. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'd like to share this song with you. It's the water song. You can sing the song, you can say the words, but it's important that you have that relationship with the water and begin that understanding. I don't know if this will work. I think you have to do it from there. There's a link there. Click the link. Can you click the link, Joe? And is it working? Just click on one of the links. I don't know which one would work.
Yeah, we'll give it another shot here. It didn't load. I'm going to give it one more try here.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Well, I could, if it doesn't work, that's okay, Joe. I think we'll just sing the song. I don't trust my voice right now, but and if you hold up your water and you sing Nibegi Chimikwechuenimiku Kishawenimiku. Same water, I love you. I thank you. I respect you. We sing it in Mi'kmaq. Samguan Gesalu. Samguan Welale. Samguan get me down. Samguan not me majawaan. Water is life. Thank you. Welale.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Dorene. I wish we could be there in person to celebrate this all together. Joe, can we switch over to the question period if that's okay? Oh, perfect. Fill the room up. Oh, that's such a profound moment. That's very, very moving. Thank you for free soloing it, Dorene. You're going to be runner-up on the next Emmy Awards, eh? But so for timing, we're running a bit over, but if it's okay with you folks, we have a couple questions that are banked up, and we'll just share them around the virtual circle if that's okay. And yeah, it doesn't we don't have to go through all of them, so no pressure, and just take your time with them. So one of the questions that came up was pretty straightforward. Who or what inspires you to promote land or water protection? And again, it could be any person, anything. And what really motivates you every morning to wake up and really work towards causes that you want to fight for. So if it's okay, we'll start with Winnie, just because you were first in the line before.
It's definitely my kids, my children, all children, and just having witnessed myself the change, in my lifetime, seeing how just access to water, access to land, access to nature, it's all changed. I know I'm starting to sound like an old person when I say that, but like I remember when I was a kid and my mom and stuff would talk about it, but my mom also lived in a time when they expropriated the waterfront of Kahnawake and they to make the seaway. And she remembers watching that and how that drastically changed the life of our community. We saw all these things. And so, I think about that and I think about my kids and I think about their children. And when I'm a little old, hopefully a Dada one day or a great grandma one day, when my great grandchildren ask me, what did you do? I want to say I did everything I could, everything. And that's something that haunts me a little bit because of that responsibility, but it's also a great honor to get a chance to kind of reach out and maybe inspire other people to join our fight, because this isn't going to change unless we come together. It isn't about a race, it's about our children, it's about humanity. And so that's something that really inspires me, how it brings people together, the fight for our land. So
Well, for me, I grew up in the shadow of the Lakeview generating plant on Lake Ontario. And it was not just this thing that belched smoke into the sky, but it also was this barrier for us to be able to experience the water. And today the generating plant is gone. It's been taken down, and that land is being restored. And the plan is for it to be land for everybody to be able to go and experience the water. So it's things like that. I guess it is change, like Waneek. It's change. Sometimes we've seen bad changes, but sometimes we see good things too. And I think, with every year that goes on and the wisdom that we gain as women growing older, we feel more comfortable to share our experiences fully and authentically, and share both the good and the bad that we've seen, and hopefully inspire that next generation to get connected and go outdoors and be in the water and feel its presence, and therefore want to protect it.
Hi. I guess for me, it is my grandchildren. I have 9 of them, and I think they look up. They're looking up to us, and I really feel like we missed a lot in our other, our generation coming out of residential schools and catching up with so many of the teachings. And for my family, it was 3 generations that went to the residential school here. So, and I was the last one. So I feel like I'm a late bloomer. It took me to be in my late 30s, almost 40, when I started following these ways and practicing these ways and learning. Where I see now my grandchildren know as much as I do at their age, where I didn't know anything at 37 and 38 and 40 years old. So I have so much hope, and hope in them, that the reason why we do what we do is so that they won't have to be doing this when they're 65. We want. I remember my grandmother, Josephine Mandeman. She's passed on recently in the last 2 years, but I think she was my mentor, I guess, and I really looked up to her, and her strength. And when she passed, part of this bundle to walk for the water, it was a big commitment. But what she was saying is, this is the rest of your life. This is your life. And I took that, very seriously. And I knew that this is going to be the challenge for the rest of my life. And I'm dedicated to that. And I really hope that we can reach out to more people. And I'm so grateful for these opportunities. Like, we ask Creator, like, how can we, teach more, and how can we get more people to help and understand and learn and stand with us. And then these opportunities come. So I'm so grateful for any help that comes in these ways as well. And I really believe this movement is led by spirit, the water spirit. So how we're coming together, and how things are meant to come together, and things that are happening. This is what we are meant to do. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity. Allowing.
That's beautiful. Thank you all for your responses. Moving on, I think we can end off with one more question, if that's okay with you folks. We'll go around in the circle like we did before. And this one's kind of reflecting more on the practical tools that we need to give our youth in order to become water protectors themselves. And in your opinion, what do you think are the best tools that we can equip them with to go out into the world and take on the causes that you all have done within your own work and carry that fight on?
Okay, fine. That I just how in you become bridges. How the land and the water still with it's as
sorry, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but it's a bit robotic or static on your end.
Oh, no,
a little robotic.
Okay, well, how
so just your full text headphones, perhaps?
That is this.
No,
All right.
it's still robotic-y.
Sweet.
Oh,
Let's see. Jump to another speaker and she
okay.
can, you're amazing. Oh, there we go. We're back to normal. That's perfect. Sorry, Waneek. I'm so sorry to interrupt your answer there, but if you would like to continue with it. No, it's still doing that.
I don't know how. So this means I have more time to.
It's
Okay.
okay. We can jump over to Jill then. It's
Okay. So sorry. Yeah. Well, I think the best answer is total immersion. So, I mean, following in Waneek's footsteps, really, she found the strength in the water as an Olympian, swimming and probably gained such a deep respect and connection with the water through that whole activity. And then her immersion just absolutely rubbed off on the rest of Canada too. And that's what's so wonderful. I think when someone, gets outdoors and explores the land and the water and experiences it not only changes them, but it changes everyone around them.
Yes. Well, I think the youth are very powerful here because their voice is amazing. When I hear the youth speak for the land and for the water, for their rights, for against the system, against the systemic racism, a lot of things that are happening throughout the land. It is the youth voices that are coming forward to they're just so much stronger than I was as a youth. When I see them, I'm just so amazed at the young people that have they've lifted they have lifted up their selves, their identities and their what they believe in. They're really amazing. And to hear them speak for the water, to hear them speak for for Mother Earth, for for the rights of Mother Earth, for the water, for humanity. It's amazing, and I think they have the answers. They need the platform like this one to speak, and it would be amazing to hear. I hope I'm invited to sit in and listen to a platform like this of youth to speak in what they know. They know so much more than we ever did. I even have a hard time getting technically challenged to get on half of these things, but they can develop programs. They're just so amazing, and we have several youth groups that are picking up their responsibilities to the water, to the land, not just the environmental, but also about the human rights, for everyone. And so I think we need to look up to them. We need to raise them up and support them. Ask them how we can help them. Ask, what can we do to support them? And if it's ceremony, if it's prayer and ceremony, if it's something that they need to learn through these ways, then we need to go and ask them. Yes, they're scared to come to us, to come to us to ask for things. I think we need to offer. Yes. Thank you.
Shall I try again?
It's perfect.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We're good.
If I could just, you know what? I think the youth have a right to demand that they have a future.
Mm-hmm.
They have a right to say and to get involved, and you know, the power of people like Greta Thunberg and Autumn Peltier and all these young people who are rightfully angry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to really look at that as not just a youthful rebellion. It's a real fear for the future. And so what I would tell people is there's a few things that if you know, don't just share something on social media. You got to show up.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stand with the water walkers and the land defenders. You got to speak up to your all levels of government. Show up when they're going to do some sort of development in your area and ask what kind of environmental protections, not just in the short term, but in the long term for that. And how to protect the water. And then really check out what it means to be Canadian and educate yourself, your family, and those around you on the issue of access to clean water. Is this a Canadian value? Ask yourself that question. What does it mean to be Canadian?
Yes.
Does it mean that a segment of the population does not have the very basic fundamental rights to clean water, to safe living, to healthy food? And if once we understand that this is a Canadian value, then you're going to see change. But if it's always seen as an Indigenous value or an Indigenous problem, you know what? It's always going to stay a problem. And so I think that those are the things. Show up, speak up, never shut up until things change.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, Waneek, that was so well delivered. I guess the little interlude just came out, everything came out. That's great. Just to be conscious of time, because it is evening on your end, folks, and you definitely deserve to go see your families and take it easy today. Thank you so very much for your honest answers and conversation. It was so great to hear from all of you. And yeah, we can move on and start wrapping this thing up. So I guess we'll announce who won the door prizes, if that's okay with you all. And we're actually quite excited. We managed to get about 10 copies of Christy Belcourt's book on medicines to help us. So we'll be giving those away and mailing them off to folks. So upon the suggestion of our team, everyone loves to hear winners announced live. So we'll share some names and then we'll get in contact with people independently. So Shannon Wagner, Allison Cutting, Brittany Firth, Beth Leonard, Reverend Meredith Anderson, Kaylee Elcombe, Jocelyn Urexa, Katrin Hood. Then we have Nick Walker and Jessica Quinnell. And we'll be emailing all these folks and hopefully doing some snail mail off to you. So thank you so much for registering. And I'm going to hand off the mic to Andrea.
Thank you, Justine. Thank you to our speakers. That was just really incredible. And your ability to speak from the heart and to speak beautifully, it just means a lot. I only wish we could all be in the same room for this, but I can definitely say that even in this virtual space, you've moved everyone here today. So thank you. Water is indeed life and it's unity, and you've done a beautiful job of making that plain for us today. I'm so grateful. We're really grateful to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants for providing the venue for this event. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a special shout out to our Riparia staff member, Justine, for all of her wonderful work hosting and making the arrangements for this event today. She's done a truly tremendous job. And in closing, I'd like to note that if Riparia's mission to motivate and inspire young women to enjoy and protect fresh waters resonates with you, there's a few simple things that you can do to support us and to support water. You can follow and engage with Riparia on Instagram or at Riparia Expeditions. You can subscribe to our newsletter, which you can find on our website, riparia.ca. We warmly welcome contributions to our summer 2021 fundraising campaign, which you can find by visiting riparia.ca/donate. And last but not least, as everyone here today has made clear, any action for water is a huge support to our overall mission. If you're inspired to act in any way locally, we'd be thrilled to hear about it. And we can be contacted via our website or email hello@riparia.ca. So yeah, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much and have a good evening, everyone.